India, once viewed as a cornerstone of Washington's strategy in Asia, now risks becoming one of the most unexpected challenges for Donald Trump's administration. When Trump returned to the White House, one of his first foreign policy goals was to build a special partnership with New Delhi. The U.S. saw India not only as a counterweight to China in the Indo-Pacific, but also as a vital energy ally that could help reshape global oil flows following sanctions on Moscow. In the early months of his presidency, Trump worked actively to strengthen his personal rapport with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. According to the Washington Sentinel, the two leaders frequently held private video conferences to discuss large-scale energy projects, U.S. LNG supplies, and joint infrastructure ventures. Trump personally offered India preferential energy deals and long-term supply guarantees, expecting that New Delhi would gradually move away from Russian crude and become a reliable part of his energy strategy. However, reality has proven far more complex. Data from Bloomberg shows that, despite India's public assurances of reducing Russian oil imports, purchases have actually surged to record levels in recent months. Satellite imagery and logistics reports confirm that Indian refineries continue to receive Russian oil tankers in the same or even greater volumes. This has sparked serious concern in Washington. Sources within the U.S. National Security Council told Politico that internal debates have intensified over how to respond to India's dual-track policy. Initially, Trump avoided pressure, relying instead on incentives and diplomacy. But as it became clear that India had no intention of abandoning cheap Russian oil, the White House began to reconsider its strategy. Trump believed he could persuade Modi with economic incentives and personal ties, a source close to the talks said. But now it's clear India has chosen its own path, one that runs counter to U.S. plans. Energy cooperation between Moscow and New Delhi is increasingly taking on a strategic and long-term nature. According to Eurasia Strategic Outlook, the two nations are expanding their collaboration beyond oil trade, exploring joint investments in petrochemicals, refining, logistics, and even moving toward transactions in local currencies, sidestepping the U.S. dollar. These developments directly challenge Trump's goal of tightening financial pressure on Moscow. Losing India would represent a major strategic setback for Washington. As the world's second most populous country and one of the fastest growing economies, India is a central player in the global energy market. A solidified alliance between New Delhi and Moscow could undermine U.S. energy policy and alter the geopolitical balance across Eurasia. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the Financial Herald reports that Trump has ordered his advisors to draft a new roadmap for U.S.-India relations. This plan reportedly combines diplomatic outreach with targeted economic measures aimed at drawing India back into America's strategic orbit. Proposals include expanding Indian firms' access to U.S. markets, boosting cooperation in high-tech industries, and launching new joint defense projects with leading American corporations. Yet tougher measures are also being discussed, such as secondary sanctions on Indian oil traders and a review of tariff agreements. Still, Washington knows that overt pressure could backfire. Today's India is no longer a dependent ally, but an assertive power pursuing its own economic and foreign policy goals. The Modi government emphasizes a multipolar world and strategic autonomy, making clear it will not sacrifice profitable Russian deals for symbolic loyalty to Washington. As the Economic Times notes, cheap Russian oil helps India contain inflation, support manufacturing, and ensure energy security. Benefits Western suppliers cannot match. Moscow is capitalizing on this pragmatically. Under Western sanctions, Russian energy firms have redirected exports toward India, offering steep discounts and flexible payment schemes. According to Global Oil Review, by autumn 2025, India had become the largest buyer of Russian oil, even surpassing China in certain months. Russia has also invited Indian companies to participate in developing oil fields in eastern Siberia and the Arctic, potentially making India a key stakeholder in its long-term energy strategy. U.S. think tanks are raising alarms. A report from the Atlantic Policy Institute warns that the deepening Moscow-New Delhi energy partnership could evolve into a lasting strategic alliance capable of challenging U.S. influence in Eurasia. If Washington fails to act decisively, it risks losing not just a market, but a crucial geopolitical foothold. From India's perspective, closer ties with Russia provide leverage in global diplomacy. As Eurasia Strategic Outlook notes, the stronger India's energy ties with Moscow, the greater its bargaining power with both Washington and Beijing. For Trump, this presents a serious dilemma. His foreign policy was built on reinforcing alliances and creating new economic blocs, but India increasingly behaves as an independent power rather than a loyal partner. Losing India's trust would mean more than a diplomatic embarrassment. It could shift the center of gravity of U.S. policy in Asia. According to Politico, a series of high-level meetings between U.S. and Indian officials is planned, including a possible visit by the Secretary of State to New Delhi to present new proposals encouraging India to cut Russian oil purchases. Yet, the outcome remains uncertain. India feels increasingly confident and sees little reason to change course while reaping mutual benefits with Moscow. If Washington fails to balance pressure and incentives soon, India could formalize a new type of relationship with Russia, one where economic gain outweighs political alignment. For Trump, that would not only be a diplomatic defeat, but also a signal to other U.S. partners that even the closest allies can chart their own course. Analysts warn that a consolidated Russia-India energy bloc could reshape oil trade routes, weaken the dollar's role in global settlements, and undermine long-term U.S. containment strategies. The White House knows its window for action is closing fast.